In October of 2017, without any international consultation, without any vote by any government, without any public debate of any significance, a small organization in San Francisco used a radio transmitter in Norway to broadcast a powerful signal toward a star, 12 light-years from Earth. The signal was a mathematical and scientific tutorial. Its purpose was to attract the attention of any intelligent life that might be orbiting that star. The organization that sent it is called METI International. METI stands for Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And the moment that signal left Earth's atmosphere and began its 12-year journey toward Lytton's star, humanity had done something that a significant number of the world's most respected scientists, including Stephen Hawking before his death, considered one of the most reckless acts our species had ever committed. Not a mistake that could be corrected, not a decision that could be unmade, a permanent announcement of our existence, our location, and our technological capabilities, sent into the unknown by a handful of people who had no authority to speak for the 8 billion human beings whose safety they were potentially gambling with. And it was not the first time, and it will not be the last. Understanding why this keeps happening, and why serious scientists keep sounding alarms that nobody seems to be listening to, requires understanding what METI actually is and what it is actually doing. SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, is passive. It listens. It does not reveal our presence, or at least not intentionally, because the act of listening does not generate an outgoing signal. METI is the opposite. It transmits, it deliberately sends powerful, directed, information-carrying signals into space toward specific star systems, with the explicit goal of attracting the attention of any intelligent life in the vicinity. The case for doing this is straightforward. If everyone is only listening, and nobody is transmitting, nobody finds anybody. Contact requires at least one party to make noise. And some researchers argue that any civilization advanced enough to represent a threat would already know we are here from our century of leaked radio and television broadcasts, in which case, transmitting intentionally costs us nothing in terms of concealment that we have not already sacrificed. The case against is considerably more alarming, and it has been made by people whose credentials in physics and astronomy place them among the most authoritative voices on the planet. Stephen Hawking, in a 2010 documentary, described the search for and contact with extraterrestrial intelligence as potentially dangerous in the extreme. He drew a specific analogy that has become the most cited framing of the anti-METI argument. He compared it to Columbus arriving in the Americas. He noted that this did not turn out very well for the native people of those continents. The comparison was deliberate, not because he assumed alien civilizations would be malicious, but because the history of contact between civilizations of radically different technological capability shows, consistently and without exception, that the outcomes are determined not primarily by the intentions of the more advanced party, but by the asymmetry of power itself. The indigenous civilizations of the Americas were not conquered because Europeans were evil. They were conquered because the power gap was too large for goodwill to overcome once the contact was made and the relationship had begun. An Oxford University Press book published in June of 2025, whose chapter on METI carries a title that is almost deliberately inflammatory, describes the activity using words including foolish, stupid, arrogant, delusional, and downright dangerous. The chapter systematically dismantles the most common defenses offered by METI proponents. The first defense is that any advanced alien civilization would necessarily be benign, perhaps even altruistic, because civilizations that are destructive presumably destroy themselves before reaching the capability for interstellar contact. The counterargument is that this assumes civilizations either become completely peaceful or destroy themselves, with no middle ground occupied by civilizations that are internally stable but externally aggressive, or civilizations that would simply consume resources without any particular hostility toward the species whose planet those resources happen to be on. The second defense is that aliens could not hurt us from astronomical distances. The counterargument is that a civilization capable of interstellar travel or communication could, over the timescales available to it, deploy systems capable of reaching us. 12 years is the travel time for light to reach Lytton's star. A relativistic projectile, traveling at a fraction of the speed of light, could arrive in Earth's solar system within a human lifetime of the signal that announced our position being received. The physics does not make distance a reliable protection against a sufficiently motivated and capable actor. The third defense, and perhaps the most frequently repeated, is that we have already been transmitting inadvertently for a century. Our television broadcasts, our radar systems, our radio communications, they have all been leaking into space. Since the early 20th century, if any civilization close enough to detect us wanted to find us, they could already have found us from our leaked transmissions. Deliberate METI therefore adds nothing to our exposure. This argument has intuitive appeal. David Brin, an astrophysicist and science fiction author, who has been one of the most persistent critics of METI, has identified the specific flaw in it. The leaked signals from Earth are diffuse, weakening with distance according to the inverse square law, inconsistent, and largely contaminated with interference. They become undetectable at distances of a few light-years under most realistic assumptions about the capabilities of alien receivers. A deliberately aimed high-power narrow-beam transmission of the kind that METI International sent toward Lighten Star is orders of magnitude stronger and more detectable at distance than any leaked signal. It is not equivalent to what we have already inadvertently done. It is qualitatively different in terms of detectability and in terms of what it reveals. And it reaches star systems that our leaked signals have not yet reached, because it travels to specific targets rather than spreading in all directions simultaneously. The governance problem is the one that Brin has called the most serious of all, and it is the one that the scientific community has least succeeded in addressing. Who has the authority to transmit a signal on behalf of all of humanity? The answer, as things currently stand, is anyone with access to a sufficiently powerful radio transmitter. METI International's 2017 transmission to Light and Star was made by a private organization, without any governance permission, without any international body's approval, without any mechanism for the 8 billion people whose future might theoretically be affected to express a view about whether this was something they wanted done. When a 1974 ceremonial transmission from the Arecibo Observatory was made by Frank Drake, Carl Sagan, and their colleagues, the international community's response included formal objections from scientists who argued that no individual or group had the right to unilaterally broadcast on behalf of the entire species. Those objections produced no binding governance framework. METI International's 2017 transmission encountered the same objections and the same absence of any mechanism to stop it. Douglas Vaycock, the director of METI International, has defended the transmissions with several arguments that deserve fair representation. He has noted that the scientific community's concern about METI is disproportionate given the actual detectability of the signals and the distances involved. He has argued that a civilization capable of interstellar travel would already have the capacity to detect Earth through direct astronomical observation of our atmosphere's chemical composition, making concealment essentially impossible regardless of whether we transmit. He has pointed out that the premise of the anti-METI argument, that any response would be militarily threatening and swift, requires a series of assumptions about alien psychology and motivation that have no empirical basis, and he has made the broader philosophical argument that humanity's instinct toward communication, toward outreach, toward the attempt to connect across distances, is one of the things most worth preserving about our species, even when it involves risk. The counter to Vaycock's position, made by researchers including Michael Michaud and John Billingham, who both resigned from SETI committees specifically over this issue, is that the asymmetry of the risk is too large to dismiss. If we transmit and nothing exists to receive it, nothing happens. If we transmit and we receive a response that changes everything about how we understand our place in the universe, the benefits could be enormous. But if we transmit and what receives it does not respond with goodwill, the consequences have no upper bound. A civilization millions of years more technologically advanced than us represents a power differential that makes the Columbus Native American comparison look optimistic. The downside in the worst case is not a problem that humanity survives. And the decision to create that exposure was made, in 2017, by a small number of individuals in San Francisco and Norway, on behalf of every living human being and every human being who will ever live, without asking any of them. The specific practical concern about realpolitik adds another dimension that the standard METI debate rarely addresses. A 2020 paper in the academic journal Space Policy argued that, even if METI produces no alien response, the act of detecting an alien signal could trigger competition among nations for monopoly access to the communication channel. Countries with the capability to receive and potentially decode alien transmissions would have a first-mover advantage in whatever knowledge those transmissions contained. That advantage would be worth controlling. The geopolitical instability generated by one nation's possession of exclusive access to alien communication could be severely destabilizing, regardless of whether the alien civilization itself represented any threat. The risk is not only what the aliens might do, it is what we might do to each other in response to the knowledge that they are out there and that one party has privileged access to them. The 2026 update to the SETI post-detection protocols, the first major revision in the history of those documents, added specific language about social media and information leaks that reflects how much the information environment has changed since the original protocols were written. But the fundamental governance gap identified by Brin, Michaud, Billingham, and the Oxford University Press chapter published in 2025 remains unaddressed. There is no international treaty governing METI. There is no legal mechanism to prevent any organization with access to a radio transmitter from broadcasting whatever they choose toward whatever star system they select. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty covers actions in space but says nothing about transmissions from Earth's surface. METI International has said publicly it intends to continue transmitting. Other organizations are developing their own METI programs. The signals are going out. Whether this is the worst idea humanity has ever had depends on a chain of probabilities that nobody can currently calculate with confidence. Is there anything within range to receive the transmissions? Is that anything capable of responding? Is it motivated to respond in a way that is harmful rather than beneficial or indifferent? Can it act on that motivation in any time frame relevant to humanity? Each of these probabilities is uncertain. What is not uncertain is that the people who have thought most carefully about this question, including at least 2 Nobel laureates and one of the most famous physicists of the 20th century, have concluded that the expected cost of the risk significantly exceeds the expected benefit, and that the decision to take that risk is being made by people who have no formal authority to make it on behalf of everyone it might affect. Whether that is the worst idea humanity has ever had is a matter of judgment. That it is an idea humanity has never actually agreed to pursue is not in dispute. And the signal that left Earth in October of 2017 will arrive at Light and Star in approximately 11 years from now, whether anyone on Earth decided they wanted it to or not.